Welcome to the Manifestation and Money podcast, where we bridge the worlds of the taboo topic of money with the woo-woo world of manifestation. We're your hosts, Chris and Jenny Schultz.
We're not just about dollars and cents around here. We're all about lifestyle design. You can be working towards financial independence while still living a life you love today.
Get ready for insightful conversations with guests who have embraced the FIRE movement by achieving financial independence and retiring early, as well as entrepreneurs and individuals who defied the norm and have paved their own way to a life they love.
Together, we'll explore the powerful connection between mindset, financial freedom, and living a purposeful life. And of course, we'll be sharing our own journey to how we carved our path to a seven-figure net worth before hitting the big 4-0. Are you ready to ignite your financial future? Then let's dive right in.
Welcome to the Manifestation and Money podcast, where your journey to financial independence and the life you love begins now.
Over here at the Manifestation and Money podcast, we are celebrating our 1-year anniversary. And I have to say, that feels pretty cool. It's been a fun journey to show up week after week, find some really cool guests, and talk about this taboo topic of money and that woo topic of manifestation. I wanted to take a moment today to reflect on the past year of the evolution of the show and some common themes that I have noticed from little bits of wisdom that we've gotten from those incredible guests. So, firstly, I started off this podcast with the intention that my spouse Chris and I would do it together. I figured our FIRE movement journey is something that we're doing together, so naturally I wanted to include him in this piece of the journey too. And as the year played out, he has been actually all in on getting a coaching certification. And I know you've heard us say this before on the show, probably many times, that you have to allow yourself the grace to pivot throughout life. And as always, we are each other's biggest cheerleaders when we take on new adventures. So naturally, I've taken the lead here on the podcast so he can be intentional with his time dedicated to his new certification. Since we've been doing the podcast for a year now, I feel like I am a lot more comfortable to be able to get a bit more honest with you on a personal level. Here's me ripping back the layers a bit and just admitting that I had a hard time imagining taking on the show myself. And it turns out that maybe I just might have a hard time doing things solo. And I think it has something to do with me being the oldest out of 3 kids and my younger middle sister only being 18 months apart from me. So I've always kind of had that loving, supportive sidekick along for the ride right by my side. That's my normal. I guess I'm just accepting this about myself and at the same time embracing taking the lead on this alone, knowing that I'll be just fine. And another big thing that came up on this kind of unpeeling of myself over the summer, because I've been working with a business coach and collaborating on a couple different masterminds and just doing some personal reflecting. And it's helped me work through some of the hangups that have popped up. It's funny to be 43 and still be learning things about myself, but I think that's just part of this game, being a human being. The second thing that came up around hosting the podcast solo was the limiting belief that I had that women can't talk about money with authority. And that was biggie for me. I can't even count the amount of times that Chris and I have gone into banks or lawyer appointments and had conversations just directed to him. Despite the number of times he would be, just talk to Jen, she's got the answers you need. The conversation just kept getting directed back at him. And it really frustrated me at the time, but I didn't really realize the impact that those little situations were having on creating this limiting belief in me that women can't talk about money with authority. It just gets directed over to the guy. Now, as I've been busting through this belief over the summer, it has caused me to seek out even more bold, powerful, intelligent women who can talk about money with authority and bring them onto the show. It doesn't mean that I won't still have empowering men on the show too, but I just think it's important to strip away the blue collar, grinded out persona that can be linked with money and men. So as I personally bust through my limiting belief about money having such a masculine tone to it, I feel like around here on the podcast, we're going to be stripping back the layers to a more neutral tone. And honestly, I'm okay with that because I feel like when we take that blue collar grind out of making money, there are so many other options that come up that are more heart-centered, and that is the space that I honestly like to play in. So we started off way back at the beginning of this podcast, really deep diving into the FIRE movement. And I do still love the idea of the FIRE movement, but several things have popped up as we've peeled back the layers that just don't really quite resonate with me. I guess the big thing that gave me the ick factor as I dug into the FIRE movement a bit more was when it came from such a place of lack and frugality. And I know that wasn't the intention of the FIRE movement from the initial spark of it, but I think as it's played out over the years, it's a common vibe that is popping up from people who just want that cutthroat path to retirement. They're so sick of their life situation now that they just want to get there. And that might be fine for those individuals choosing to go that route. But I think you've got to also allow yourself the present moments in life. Like right now, what are you doing right now for you that makes you happy? You can't just be sidelining everything waiting for someday. You got to find that sweet spot between the two. Let me share some examples here to illuminate just the vibe that I was picking up on that was rubbing me the wrong way. I have been seeing topics of conversation about whether or not having a child would throw people off of their early retirement plan. And that to me feels really heavy. And it's not that I'm not willing to have heavy conversations. I just feel like those types of conversations are almost a glass half empty type vibration. If our only focus on life is monetary based and we're basing every single decision off of what is the money going to look like that backs or supports this, then I feel like that kind of makes life transactional. And I like to come from kind of that place of possibility and those conversations around possibility. So those frugal lack type conversations of I can't because blah, 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 end of story, those conversations make me sad. I want the conversations to be how can I have the life I love today and set myself up for a fulfilling future, exploring the possibilities of what that might look like. So the other conversations I see pop up are people fighting over, to me, the silliest things. Like I've seen fights over my spouse has spent $5 out of their wallet without consent. In my eyes, that's suffocating. If you're living today without the freedom to spend $5 out of your wallet, then you're not really living. And again, my beliefs, I believe that life is meant to be enjoyed. But if you are just gripping so tight that a $5 purchase is causing a heated debate in your family, then I just think something's got to shift. That's not a good space to be sitting in. The flip side of that frugality is people just working so hard, like double time, overtime. They're missing out on their kids growing up. They're missing out on time with their spouse, friends, peers. They get to that early retirement end goal, and honestly, they don't know how to take their foot off the gas. We all get to make our own choices at the end of the day, right? So you do you. And at the same time, allow others to embrace their own choices. We all have the free will to choose our paths because life is really one big old choose your own adventure. I loved those books so much as a kid, and right now Casey's really into them. And it's just a fun, playful way to look at life. I don't know if you were like me where you were sticking your fingers in, bookmarking those choose your own adventure books, and then if the ending didn't quite turn out, you'd flip back to what your other option is. Life, I don't think we really get that chance. But hopefully at the end of the road, when we get to the end and we look back at our path and see it more clearly, we will see that we chose the path that felt congruent and authentic to us. And that means congruent and authentic to you. I had an amazing guest earlier this year who coined the term FILE. So that's financial independence, live early. And I think that's a beautiful place to shoot for. For me, I think the sweet spot really does lie there. Where can you be making enough of an income that you're paying for a joyful life today and yet get to choose what that life looks like for you? And that doesn't mean over here at the Schultz house, we're driving around in a Rolls Royce. Nope. We've got our Honda CRV, but we also are prioritizing family vacations and connection time with extended family. We've created a blend of things that bring us joy with the income to support it. And yes, we are also preparing for the future with those little investments along the way. You get to decide what that looks like for you, and then you also get to choose whether or not you're going to go after that. And I've heard a quote before, somewhere along the lines of create a life you don't want to retire from. Now, that does sound like a complete oxymoron to the FIRE movement acronym of early retirement, but I am personally using that as my current lens to intentionally create my life. And I invite you to do the same. How can you create a life that you don't want to retire from? Where are you kind of blurring those lines between work and play so that life feels fun and fluid? Now I want to switch gears here slightly, as I've compiled a list of 6 reoccurring themes that I've noticed pop up among our guests during the first year. And I think these are really fun, empowering things to do a quick little recap on. So number 1, that question of what do I want? Now, I lost track, honestly, of the number of times that this was mentioned on the show, and I really do hope that future guests continue to ask it. What do you want? Think on this question, think on it often, like get really quiet and think on it and use it as your compass to creating a life you love. Number 2, the guts to try and the guts to fail. When you think of trying something new and the fear of failure is holding you up, just think of that acronym of FAIL as first attempt in learning. Like picture that baby learning to walk. They have to try over and over until they get the hang of it, right? And then it becomes second nature. If you want to try something new, the road is likely going to be a bit rocky as you figure it out. But once you do, that newfound confidence in you can be game-changing as you move forward. And number 3 is letting go of what other people think. This one sounds so simple, but it is a tricky one. We judge people, we compare ourselves to others, and we worry about what others think of us. So start by letting go of your judgment of others, release that grip of comparison, and just trust that your heart is leading you in the right direction. And that is the perfect segue for number 4, which is the boldness of saying yes to what your heart wants to do, even if it's scary. If you have that reoccurring pull in your heart that you're meant to do something, why not explore what that looks like? I'm sure your head's going to want to jump in and tell you all the reasons why you shouldn't do it. Look at those objections inquisitively and see if there's truth in that or if you're merely trying to keep yourself in your comfort zone. I shared earlier, hosting this podcast myself felt scary. And when I peeled back the layers and saw where the resistance was, I was then able to step forward and embrace my role. Learn to say yes what your heart wants to do. Number 5, when you want something bad enough, you will make the space to make it happen. Dare I say, all of my guests on the show have had events, ailments, illnesses, and setbacks in their lives that could have easily been turned into an excuse for why they could or couldn't move forward and do something. So when you want something bad enough, you will make the space to make it happen. Lastly, if early retirement is your goal, what do you plan to do once you retire? And how can you start making those things a way of your life now? I want you to jot that one down and think about it. You don't want to sign yourself up for a 9-to-5 future of watching the news. Because let's be honest, the news is tipped in favor of doom and gloom, and that is not the future to sign yourself up for. I want you signing yourself up for a future of excitement and adventure and giving back and inspiration and joy and possibility, all of that good stuff. So, what is the podcast going to look like in year 2? Well, I'm glad you asked. Around here, I'm still going to talk about that taboo topic of money. Because face it, in this crazy world, you and I need to have these conversations. No one is coming to save us. You're either setting yourself up for financial independence in your future, or you're not. So we've got to navigate this interesting world around us with the eye of possibility to see the opportunities. And unfortunately, after talking to a lot of my guests this past year, the opportunities aren't always on display for the average person. But the simple formula that does seem to be popping up if you want to proactively have money in your future is make more money, spend less, and invest the gap. And please don't tuck that money under your mattress. With inflation, it is just losing purchasing power. And even if it's sitting in your bank account at this point, it's probably losing purchasing power. That is something we could probably do an entire episode on. So I'll just leave it at that. And we're going to continue to bring on guests who are expert in real estate, stocks, crypto, peer-to-peer lending, the experts that are out there walking the walk today and talking the talk, and to get their real-world views on what exactly they are doing. I'll still be bringing you various money-making ideas because money-making ideas are abundant. They're all around you and you can't do them all. So I want to open your eyes to see the opportunities that might be a good fit for you and see what resonates for you. And yes, without dipping too hard into that frugal lack mentality, I am still going to be showing you ways to spend less and keep you on track with your money. Because I want you to have a good relationship with money and get your money working with you and for you. Chris still might pop on the show from time to time when an aligned topic pops up. Overall, I think the vibe of the show is just going to be tipped a bit more into creating that life that you don't want to retire from. and setting yourself up so that you don't have to grind it out tirelessly day after day. And full disclosure, there will be a bit more woo. I feel like there really is something to dreaming big and playing into the space of manifestation, and I want to explore that more. And I realize that's not for everyone. So on the show, we're going to be leaning into it with a lens of curiosity and exploration. I hope you're along for the ride. As always, I'm open for feedback, and if there is a specific topic or guest that you think would be a great fit for the show, please send them my way. Now that my kiddos are back to school, I am really enjoying this extra brain power time and the adult conversation that goes along with it. I love being inspired, and I sense that you guys do too. Cheers to creating a life that you love. Hey, wait! Before you go, do you want to increase your income by $1,000 a month? If so, check out our free side hustle guide at www.fourleaflifestyle.com/money-ideas. I'll pop it in the show notes for easy access. Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Manifestation and Money Podcast. If you enjoyed today's chat, be sure to hit that subscribe button to catch more of our weekly episodes. Until then, cheers to creating a life you love.